Hello and welcome to the Federal Program Monitoring Training for the Supporting Effective Instruction Program, which is also known as Every Student Succeeds Act, Title II, Part A. My name is Geeta Resvani, and I'm here today with my colleague Jill Johnson from the Standards Implementation Support Office at the California Department of Education, or CDE. We both are responsible for conducting federal program monitoring reviews this year. Before we start, Jill will go over a few basic housekeeping and today's training objectives. Jill?
Thank you, Geeta. Hello, everyone. My name is Jill Johnson. A few housekeeping items to review before we begin. If you have any questions, please email title2@cde.ca.gov. We also have a listserv that you can join by sending a blank email to join-title-2@mlist.cde.ca.gov. Slides can be downloaded from our Title II website, which is located at www.cde.ca.gov/PD/TI. From here, navigate to the Governance and Accountability tab. Office hours are available via Zoom for Title II Part A General Technical Assistance and pre-FPM monitoring reviews. Please send your request via email to title2@cde.ca.gov to schedule. Our objectives for the webinar are to provide an overview of the Every Student Succeeds Act, Title II Part A, review frequently non-compliant items and areas of concern, and review the 2021 Supporting Effective Instruction SEI instrument.
Thank you, Jill. We start with the purpose of Title II, Part A. The purpose of Every Student Succeeds Act, Title II, Part A, is increasing student achievement consistent with the challenging state academic standards, improving the quality and effectiveness of teachers, principals, and other school leaders, increasing the number of teachers, principals, and other school leaders who are effective in improving student academic achievement in schools, and providing low-income minority students greater access to effective teachers, principals, and other school leaders. There is a misconception that Title II Part A means professional development or PD only. Title II Part A is not all about PD, and not all PDs are supported with Title II Part A. Based on extensive needs assessment and input from the stakeholders, Title II may be used to support improving the quality and effectiveness of teachers and principals through supplemental PD. However, that needs to be a direct result from the needs assessment, and the PD must meet the definition of professional development. Now that we went over the purpose of the program, it is equally important to go over definition of professional development under the ESSA. ESSA defines professional development, or PD, as activities that are sustained, intensive, collaborative, job-embedded, data-driven, personalized, or based on information from an evaluation and support system, and classroom-focused. This does not include PD that stands alone and does not connect to a larger school-wide or individualized plan. Now, during the time of COVID-19, this requirement has been waived under the Federal Flexibility Waiver. This does not mean you can have PD that is not aligned to needs assessment, but rather this federal flexibility allows districts to utilize PD that may be one-time or standalone. For example, PDs in areas of distance learning. For additional information, please visit the CDE Federal Funding Flexibility webpage at cde.ca.gov. gov/re/es/COVID-19funflex.asp. At this point, we would like to give you a chance to reflect on information provided so far. Feel free to pause the video and consider this question. Based on your understanding of Title II, what does program compliance mean to you? Have that in mind, that the purpose of SCI review is compliance monitoring. Thank you for pausing for reflection. ESSA Section 2101 or Title II Part A provides grants to states in order to support effective instruction. Then, in accordance to the ESSA Section 2102, California Department of Education awards sub-grants to eligible local educational agencies or LEA. The CDE has a legal obligation to monitor legal requirements for Title II Part A of ESSA for compliance, and is doing so via the SCI program instrument. The SCI program instrument is available on the CDE compliance monitoring webpage at cde.ca.gov/ta/cr/. Now I will turn it to Jill, who will go over compliance monitoring in more detail.
Thank you, Gita. Federal law requires the CDE to monitor implementation of categorical programs operated by LEAs. LEAs are responsible for creating and maintaining programs which meet fiscal and programmatic requirements. I want to emphasize that monitoring is not an audit. There are no penalties assessed against the LEA, nor do we request funds be returned. If, during the monitoring process, we identify areas that are not in compliance, we may issue findings, and we will work with the LEA to create and/or implement necessary steps to be in compliance with the purpose of Title II. If there are any expenditures that are not allowable, we will require the LEA to reimburse the program, but the funds stay with the LEA. Gita will talk more about the use of funds in a few slides. Also, LEAs must adhere to assurances signed in the consolidated application, which is why we monitor the program. For the 1920 school year, here's a breakdown showing which items have the majority of findings. Findings are issued when an LEA is not in compliance with the program and they are unable to rectify the concern before the end of the review. For simplicity, SCI 05, use the funds, and 07, supplement not supplant, were combined. I do want to point out that even though 27% of the findings are for the fiscal component of Title II Part A, that only represents the LEAs that were unable to credit the program back before the end of the review. Next, we have SCI 04. Identify and address disparities, with 15% of the findings. The findings are typically a result of the LEA not identifying if an educator equity gap exists in their district as part of the LCAP federal addendum provision for Title I educator equity. Next, SCI 09, certification and licensure. Findings are often a result of either not providing a complete list of teachers and their credentials or paraprofessionals not meeting state certifications. And lastly, SCI 13, parental notification. Findings here are often a result of the LEA not sending families the 4-week letters informing them that their child has been taught for 4 or more consecutive weeks by a teacher who does not meet the state licensure requirements.
The SCI program instrument is organized in 5 dimensions and a total of 13 program items. The first 3 dimensions and their corresponding program items are on this page. Dimension 1 is involvement, which includes SCI 01, consultation, and staff development. The next dimension is governance and administration. under these dimensions are SEI-02, Professional Development Coordination, SEI-03, Review and Revise Local Control and Accountability Plan, LCAP Federal Addendum, and SEI-04, Identify and Address Disparities. SEI items related to funding are under Dimension 3. SEI-05, Use of Fund, SEI-06, Private School Participation, Consultation, and LEA Control of Funds, and SEI-07, Supplement, not Supplant. The last two dimensions and their corresponding program items are on this page. SEI-08, Alignment and Academic Standards, is under Dimension 4, Standards, Assessment, and Accountability. The last dimension in our instrument is Dimension 5, Staffing and Professional Development, which covers legal requirements of certification and licensure under SEI-09, Professional Growth and Improvement under SEI-10. SEI-11 is Comprehensive Support and Targeted Support Prioritization. Data and ongoing consultation requirements are under SEI-12. The last program item is SEI-13, Parents' Right to Know Teacher Qualification, which also includes the 4-week letter. The program instruments are available on the CDE Compliance Monitoring webpage at cde.ca.gov/ta/cr/.
Thanks, Geeta. Here is an example of what an instrument will look like. The green arrow on the left identifies the law associated with that item. On the right, you'll notice the evidence requests by CDE to meet the requirement. Many evidence requests will be used by multiple programs, and you will notice that listed also under related items. For example, Title I, Title II, Fiscal Monitoring, and Title III all request general ledgers. Let us start with SEI-01, Consultation and Staff Development. The Elementary and Secondary Education Act, as reauthorized under the Every Student Succeeds Act, ESSA, states, the LEA shall consult with teachers, principals, other school leaders, paraprofessionals, parents, community partners, and other organizations or partners with relevant and demonstrated expertise in programs and activities regarding the planning of staff development activities and preparation of the LCAP Federal Addendum. Evidence for this item should include multiple documents reflecting consultation from a range of stakeholders. If you obtained feedback, say from teachers, please upload the original survey, raw data, and if you compiled the data into graphs or charts, please include that as well. More evidence, the better. SEI-02, PD Coordination. The LEA shall coordinate PD activities with other related strategies, programs, and activities being conducted in the community. And the LEA will coordinate PD activities intended to support effective instruction with PD activities provided through other federal, state, and local programs. Regardless if professional development is paid with Title II funds, we are looking at your entire program. Upload PD calendars for your districts and sites, documentation of planning for both PD short and long term. PD records may include agendas, PowerPoints if any, other handouts, sign-in sheets, feedback from PDs. It's okay to upload information from the prior school year, since you may not have items for this current school year. SEI-03. Review and revise LCAP Federal Addendum. The LEA shall review and revise its LCAP Federal Addendum as required, which shall remain in effect for the duration the LEA participation in the Title II Part A programs, and the LCAP Federal Addendum shall be coordinated with other federal programs. The LCAP Federal Addendum required CDE and the State Board of Education approval. If your LCAP Federal Addendum was approved, moving forward, the LEA must yearly review and revise the LCAP Federal Addendum in addition to their LCAP, but they do not need to submit another LCAP Federal Addendum to CDE. SEI 04. Identify and address disparities. SEI 04 is one of the LCAP Federal Addendum provisions. The LEA shall identify and address any disparities that result in low-income students and minority students being taught at higher rates than other students by ineffective, inexperienced, or out-of-field teachers. Evidence must include data on comparable sites that include the number of ineffective, misassigned, and inexperienced teachers teaching minority students and low-income students. You can find tools on the CDE Promoting Equitable Access to Teachers webpage at www.cde.ca.gov/PD/EE/PEAT.ASP.
SEI 05 covers legal requirements for local use of funds. An LEA that receives a subgrant under Title II Part A shall use the funds made available through the subgrant to develop, implement, and evaluate comprehensive programs and activities in accordance with the purpose of Title II and that address the learning needs of all students, including children with disabilities, English learners, and gifted and talented students. Detailed information regarding ESSA local use of funds is available under SEI 05 Legal Requirements section and on the CDE Title II Part A Resource and Guidance webpage at cde.ca.gov/PD/TI/. Now here is another opportunity to pause the video and reflect. What types of activity in your districts could align with Title II Part A? Please refer to the LEA Local Use of Funds under SEI 05 in the SEI instrument. Allowable use of fund is one of the key components of the compliance monitoring. The other compliance element related to use of Title II Part A funds is supplement not supplant, which is covered under SEI 07. It is required that funds made available under Title II Part A shall be used to supplement and not supplant state and local funds that would otherwise be used for activities authorized under Title II Part A. Let's look at the supplement and not supplant in a little more detail. How to determine if the cost is supplanting? Here are a few simple questions to ask. 1. Are the Title II funds being used to provide services that the LEA was required to make available under other federal, state, or local laws? For example, English language development, ELD, or child abuse training? Are the Title II funds being used to provide services that the LEA provided with non-federal funds in the prior years? For example, the position paid from another source the year before. When in doubt, reach out to us here at CDE. Call us or send us an email. Our contact information will be provided at the end of this presentation. Evidence to review and establish whether the legal requirements for SEI 05, use of funds, and SEI 07 supplement not supplant are met include the following. Detailed General Ledger for Title II, Part A, which is Resource Code 4035. After reviewing the General Ledger, we ask for sample expenditure records and backup documentation to determine if the costs are allowable and supplemental. Position Control Report for Resource Code 4035. Duty Statement, Job Description, and Time and Effort records for employees paid with Title II. Invoice and purchase orders as part of expenditure sampling. Memorandums of Understanding and Justifications. Now it's time to look at a few scenarios related to use of Title II funds. A district uses Title II funds to pay for 50% of the teacher on special assignment, TOSA salary. Review of job description and interview revealed that the TOSA only provides PD and coaching targeted to ELD and long-term English learners. Is this an appropriate use of funds? Why? Again, pause the video if needed, reflect, and respond. This would not be appropriate use of funds and considered supplanting. Programs and activities must address the learning needs of all students, including children with disabilities and English learners, not just English learners. Additionally, other state and local funds are available and should have been utilized. Here is another scenario. A district uses Title II funds to pay for 50% of salaries for 3 sources to provide coaching support to teachers who focus on math and English language arts and ELD. Is this an allowable use of funds? Why? Again, pause the video if needed, reflect, and respond. This would be allowable because the additional services being provided by the TOSA would not be possible without the existence of Title II. Job description, duties, and activities performed could include professional learning activities and coaching related to alignment of ELA and ELD. These services are supplemental. Here are both scenarios side by side. Title II Part A funds used to pay for TOSA salary in both scenarios. Scenario 1, not allowable. A district uses Title II funds to pay for 50% of a TOSA salary. The TOSA only provides PD and coaching targeted to ELD and long-term English learners. Scenario 2, allowable. A district uses Title II funds to pay for 50% of the salaries of 3 sources to provide math and ELA/ELD coaching support to teachers. Here is another example related to the Title II Part A expenditure from one of our federal program monitoring reviews, which led to a finding under SEI 05. A review of sample expenditures and interviews with staff demonstrated that Title II Part A funds were used to pay for catering during summer staff training. The legal requirements are that LEA shall use the funds under Title II Part A to develop, implement, and evaluate comprehensive programs and activities in accordance with the purpose of Title II and that address the learning needs of all students. This expenditure is not within the scope of Title II Part A. The LEA was not able to credit back Title II Part A funds for the cost of food prior to the federal program monitoring established deadline. As a result, a compliance finding was noted in the Notification of Findings, or NOF. It was noted that the Title II Part A funds cannot be used to purchase food. Therefore, the LEA must credit back Title II Part A Resource Code 4035 for the total amount of expenses associated with the food. The LEA must upload into the CDE monitoring tool evidence of budget transfer that Title II Part A was reimbursed with unrestricted funds. The programs and activities which are supported by Title II Part A funds must be in line with its purpose and address the learning needs of all students. Program expenditures must also be in alignment with the LEA's Professional Development Needs Assessment as stated in the LEA's planning documents such as LCAP and LCAP Federal Addendum. Title II Part A fund is supplemental. Here are examples of allowable expenditures. Stipend to pay teachers after contract hours for PD and professional learning. Recruitment and retention. Stipend and/or substitute cost to participate in PD or mentorship, such as induction. Conference fees, lodging, and travel costs that adhere to the state and federal guidelines. Again, all expenses must be supplemental, reasonable, necessary, and benefit the program. Information on local use of funds is available under ESSA Section 2103. SCI 06 covers requirements pertaining to private school participation, consultation, and local educational agency control of funds. These requirements include timely and meaningful consultation, equitable services, control of funds, and that services shall be provided by individuals or organizations independent from the private school and any religious organizations. Evidence required for the SCI 06 compliance monitoring review include dated notice of ESSA eligibility to private schools for Title II, consultation with private schools for Title II, private school affirmation of consultation for Title II, detailed general ledger for Title II Part A, which is Resource Code 4035, and samples of Title II equitable services expenditures.
Thank you, Geeta. SEI 08, Alignment and Academic Standards, and SEI 10, Professional Growth and Improvement. While many of the evidence requests are similar to SEI 01, 02, and 03, please review the item instructions to ensure you are uploading evidence specific to this item. For example, for SEI 10, we want to see professional development plans and records focused on improving leadership among administrators, teachers, and other school leaders. You can link the documents you uploaded for SEI 01, 02, and 03 for 08 and 010, and vice versa. SEI 11, Comprehensive Support and Targeted Support Prioritization, and SEI 12, Data and Ongoing Consultation. A provision in your LCAP Federal Addendum asked how the LEA will prioritize funding for high-need sites. Regardless if Title II funds are used, we need to see evidence of support for these sites. Please upload your school accountability report cards from the school sites. If you have more than 5 or 6 sites, go ahead and upload the SARCs for the sites under review. SEI 12, Evidence of Implementation and Monitoring. Specifically, how are you measuring the effectiveness of the program and the impact on student achievement? We would like to see any presentations you have to the board showing implementation and monitoring of Title II resources. We would also like to see how the district leadership is engaged in reviewing the implementation and monitoring of Title II. And just a few more slides. SEI 09, Certification and Licensure. all teachers and paraprofessionals meet applicable state certification and licensure requirements. Certificated. Provide a sortable spreadsheet of all certificated staff throughout the LEA, displaying credentials and full staff names, credentials, subject matter authorizations, current assignment, and site. Non-certificated. Provide a sortable spreadsheet of non-certificated staff, including full names and qualifications. We need to know how the paraprofessional meets state licensure, associate's degree, district exam, or a bachelor's degree. LEAs need to maintain records to verify how paraprofessionals meet state licensure. And finally, SEI 13, Parental Notice. An LEA that receives Title I funds shall notify the parents of each student attending any school receiving Title I funds that the parents may request, and the LEA will provide the parents information regarding the professional qualification of the student's classroom's teacher. This is often found in the family handbook. Please upload evidence of the notification and how the information is distributed to families. Regarding the 4-week letter, timely notice that the student has been assigned or has been taught for 4 or more consecutive weeks by a teacher who does not meet applicable state certification or licensure requirements at the grade level and subject area in which the teacher has been assigned. Part of the evidence states to include the procedure in place to ensure teachers are correctly assigned based on their credentials, and the practice of sending a 4-week letter. If you don't have this procedure written as a policy, now is a good time to create one. Evidence for this request must include sample letter and evidence the letter was sent, if applicable. A sample of the 4-week letter in Title I Parent Notification can be found on the CDE Title I Part A Parent and Family Engagement webpage at www.cde.gov/sp/T1/parent-family-involved.asp.
Here is a list of additional CDE resources with their corresponding website related to the areas covered in this presentation. CDE Federal Program Monitoring Frequently Asked Questions, ESSA Information, Compliance Monitoring, CDE Professional Learning, LCAP, and COVID-19 and California responses. Here is our contact information. Please reach out to us if you have any question or to assist you during this monitoring cycle. We are available via phone or email. Of course, email is the best way to reach us. We are looking forward to working with you during this monitoring cycle. You can also contact Standards Implementation Support Office main line at 916-323-5847 or send your inquiries to title2@cde.ca.gov. Thank you.
Office hours are available upon request. Please email the reviewer assigned to your LEA for the SEI monitoring review, or email title2@cde.ca.gov. We also would love your feedback on the presentation so we can continue to improve. Please provide feedback via Google survey at forms.GLE/GS-AHHC3YUSEK6. Thank you so much for your guys' time today.